Welcome to the Every Night is Game Night preview series, the show where designers and publishers share their passion and answer critical questions about their Kickstarter projects. If you're on the fence about a pledge, this is the show for you.
ENGN preview series episode 40, Anomaly with Brenna Noonan. Yo my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to the Every Night is Game Night preview series. I am your host Jason. Thank you so much for joining us again. So this episode is a little bit wonky. I don't think we've quite done this in 40 episodes of the preview series. So this episode we did release on the day that the formerly named Zero Fear Nothing Kickstarter launched from Starling Games. So since then the project was canceled and renamed as Anomaly. So what I've done is I've taken that episode that was about Fear Nothing and I just kept it. So I will play the episode in its entirety after I give this little preamble. So we're going to refer to the game as Zero Fear Nothing during that pod. Don't worry about that. I'm actually going to keep even talking about the name because I think there's some insights about the designer and how they wanted to approach this particular game. So I'm just going to keep the whole thing, but please keep in mind that the game we're talking about is now called Anomaly. It is on Kickstarter. It is relaunched and ready for you guys to check it out. See if you wanted to back it or not. So why'd they pull it? I asked Brenna, and Brenna said the following. One of the great things about Kickstarter is that it allows our audience to give feedback and affect the game in real time. In this case, it was clear that our initial vision for Zero Fear Nothing was not coming across the way we had hoped. Translate, there wasn't funding. After receiving lots of supportive and thoughtful feedback, we made the difficult decision to cancel and relaunch the campaign at a later date, so we can give the game its best chance at success. We'll be relaunching with a revamped campaign page, a lower price point, and a new name, Anomaly. Hope to see you there. So let's translate that a little bit. What happened? So very quickly, first the name. It was just a difficult kind of thing, having a symbol as a name. This is not Prince over here. This is a game that's trying to, actually get some audience. And having a symbol as a name wasn't exactly filling people with a lot of joy. So that was one thing. Reading through the comments, though, I think there's some deeper criticisms that the folks have had. Some commenters were saying that the game just wasn't getting a whole lot of hype, which is, that's kind of a back-end thing. Not a lot of buzz about it, coverage in the different spheres and everything, except for Man vs. Meeple. The page itself apparently didn't have enough detail about the actual game. People were finding that it was a little bit thin on gameplay. See, to me, I don't learn that way. So it's great when a campaign has a lot of detail, but I'm more back for the people. I'm more back, Starling Games at this point, we've talked about this a lot, is slowly earning my trust. So I look at Starling Games, I look at One vs. Many, I look at some of the other gameplay elements, and I'm like, bam, I will figure out if I'm going to back that or not. And then if I really regret the game, which happens like, one every 4 or 5 times, then I'll sell it. And I usually get back my money, so I don't really pour into the details of it. So that's also why we don't really pour into details in the preview series here. Just want to give you guys a feel for the game, what this game feels like, and what the designer headspace was or the publisher headspace when they're approaching it. So that's how we're going to go with that. So because of all those reasons, they canceled and they are relaunching as Anomaly. So I'm hope they fund. It looks like a fun game just from what I've seen. So what we're going to do now, as I said before, we are going to relaunch that very same episode, pretty much unchanged. Once again, Zero Fear Nothing is no more as a title. The game is Anomaly. So when you hear that title, think Anomaly. So yeah, that's enough of me rambling on to the show. I was about to relax and chill out for my October. In case you don't know, I'm about to have a big family event. We're all preparing and everything. But then I saw this project come on Kickstarter. It is called Zero Fear Nothing. We're going to get into it, why I was so drawn to this, excited about this. But I had to reach out to my old friend, Brenna Noonan. This happened on Twitter earlier today. We're recording tonight and posting the next day. Woohoo!
Technology.
Technology. Welcome to the show, Brenna.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Welcome back.
It's great to be back.
You were on for the Primordial expansion for Planetarium, which was a fun project. You finished Everdell, the Pearl Book expansion, and now you're on for Fear Nothing. You were saying before the call you have another project next month. You guys are, I'm not sure what you guys are taking on. Or
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's hectic, but that's kind of what the market demands right now, just like constant content generation to kind of stay in the public eye. So, we're just happy to be working on some really exciting projects and supporting like some of our existing lines like Planetarium and Everdell with expansion. So it's an exciting time, albeit a busy one.
Mm-hmm. And what I'll say is I think people might hear that and they think like, oh, they're just like putting stuff out. Like it's all good, you will have heard our Everdell review, which was very positive. In a future episode, we're going to be covering Archmage. Spoiler, very positive. And it's not like we're just, shilling for you or anything like that. These are really, really good games.
Yeah, thank you.
I had an experience at a game night this past weekend. I went to like a shop and I brought Everdell with me. It's like, oh, I want to play this, I actually brought Everdell to a bunch of places because I was just kind of in the mood for it.
Thank you. I
love clever card games. Like it's like, that's like my wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, I'm the same.
So then, I brought it to a place and I was laying it out. It's like, okay, what's this about? And I told them like, Starling Games used to be Game Salute. They're like, Game Salute? I'm not playing that. Like, really, guys? Really? We talked about this last week on the pod, but it's going to come up a couple of times. Like it wasn't just a project. I reached out to Ben. I'm going to do a little bit of editorializing. I'm going to mix up the beginning of this. Usually it's the intro and everything. I know, Brenna this is our second episode together. We've come, to have a friendly relationship. So I'm not just saying this because Brenna's here. Like, Brenna has become a friend because they're building up a lot of trust with me, especially in the face of what's been going on, because it just feels like they're really trying hard to make up for it. They're really trying hard, not just to kind of, hey, we're going to get, but like to really follow through and make excellent games with great components and, kind of entry level accessible gameplay, but that's still engaging. Like every single project that I've tried from at least the Starling Games imprint, I've really enjoyed. So it rankles at my sense of fairness, and I know I'm a gamer. Why am I being such a dork? But it just makes me sad,
Yeah, I get it. And I definitely see both sides of it. And like on the one hand, it's like we recognize that it's kind of a deep hole to dig out of. That's also kind of where the impetus to put out, really just I think like good is like so subjective because what one person may like, somebody else may not like. So what I'll say is like we work really hard to put out just like thoroughly tested, like developed to the bone, balanced games. They're going to be beautifully produced, have beautiful components, have theme running through them. Whether or not the game is for you may be one thing, but I'm hoping that, building up the Starling name with games like Everdell and Archmage, and the things we have to come, people will come to expect that from us, kind of this more like, I kind of call it like a boutique style game, like very lovingly crafted. Right. So I'm and I think that's kind of what we have to do with the situation we're in, because we can't really afford to just be like mediocre. We kind of have to be exceptional in this situation.
And I guess that's what the point of this, again, this is a preview series, so there's a little bit of an element of selling. But really, guys, I hope that over 100 and some odd episodes, I've built up a little bit of cred with our audience here. I'm not backing these projects if I think they're kind of like just whatever. I think there's so much to them. I feel the craft, I feel the love, I feel the polish. Everdell's not a perfect game, but it's fun. And
how dare you? No, I'm joking, of course. Yeah,
I encountered a little bit of balance issues as I got more plays in, but seriously, guys, it's just the negative attitude. Like that's the thing. It's like it's the prejudgment that really kind of gets me. It's like, okay, you heard one thing, or maybe you didn't even have like a experience with it, and you're just kind of getting it secondhand. Which I think that may have been the case with this person that I met. No more negative attitudes. Open your mind again. Starling makes really, really fun games. So there you go. PSA over. Soapbox over. I had to get my nerd sense of fairness out there.
Well, thank you. I mean, I always appreciate you going to bat for us. And, like I said, the last time I was on, us like trying to rebuild this reputation does not at all mean that we're, trying to excuse the mistakes of the past or anything like that. Can't escape the past. You just have to build from it. So we're very cognizant of that. So, we're grateful for people like you who can see like the improvements that are being made and are willing to like stay with us as we're going on this journey of improvement.
Yeah, and so let's get to it. So that's the last time that you'll hear from me in this space. I might mention it a couple of times on Twitter or whatever it is. I think we also have an episode where we talk about Archmage. We kind of mentioned it. But, I just want to get it out there, and then we can move on. So let's talk about Zero Fear Nothing, which is a weird, like you say the words, but that's not how it appears on the box. It's the character Zero : Fear Nothing, which seems to invite a little bit of confusion. So I'm wondering what the decision making around that was.
Yeah, and actually, not to get technical about it, but the character that's used is actually the character. It's the null sign. So actually. Even calling it zero is a little bit of a misnomer, but like there's only so much we can do.
Okay.
So yeah, as we were developing it, so the game's designed by Thomas Dagenet-L'Esperance, who designed Decrypto, which is a great game, great designer. He's wonderful to work with. And the game came to us with actually like an island jungle monster theme, kind of like Predator, sort of. And we didn't love the theme, so me and Dan May, our creative director, really worked on it. And as we were working on it, like we just couldn't come up with a name for this game. We went through so many names. The working title for a really long time was The Beast. That's like how it was referred to internally, which is just generic, obviously. And as we were like iterating on it and doing all this development and like thematic work, Dan just kept having like these I don't want to say like visions of zeros, but he was very drawn to the concept of because in the game it's never actually revealed like what this thing is. So he was really drawn to like the absence of the threat kind of and like this idea of there being like zero survivors, even though there are survivors. And then like as you can see, if you've checked out the box cover art, the shape of the ship is actually like a zero, and then there's like a slash going through it, which is like a bolt going through the ship. So it looks like that null symbol. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like an abstract, like very like thematic name, I guess. But it's the one that we landed on, and I think like once you get into the meat of the game, you can kind of feel it in there.
It's a one verse mini game, and we were talking before the call, before we started recording the call, that is, that they're on a lot in the space. Like, we have your Specter Ops and your Letters from Whitechapel. There's kind of like a small pantheon of these one verse mini games, and they're hard.
Yes, they are.
It's hard to kind of. It seems like it's basically two separate games. Like you have to make the villain quote unquote side compelling and the player side compelling. And we'll get into mechanically why this stands out. There is definitely one mechanism in particular that makes this really stand out.
I'm interested to hear what you think that one is.
Really? It's not that obvious. I thought it was like, I looked at him like, okay, that's cool. But just give us an executive summary of what we're getting into.
Yeah, so in Zero, the idea is that you are a group of students who have been stranded on this space station, like something catastrophic has happened, and you're trapped on the station with something, and you don't know what it is, but you know it's very dangerous and it wants to kill you. So it's for 4 players, so one player is always going to be the creature, the entity, the monster, and the other players or player are going to be the students who are fighting it. So it's hidden movement. So every player has a little player board that's behind a player's screen. So even the students who are playing cooperatively don't always know exactly where they are, where the other students are. Mm-hmm. We do have things called hint cards that are placed in front of the player screens. The boards divide up into zones, so the hint cards will reference different zones on the board. So you can try to triangulate where people are and hopefully narrow that down, but you often won't know exactly where anyone is.
It's a lot of games, and not a lot of games, but there's enough games in the space to kind of see where this is close to. Mm-hmm. So here's what stood out for me. In a lot of these games, it's separate. The players are cooperating and they're having their own resources and they're doing their own thing. and then the monster is doing its own thing. They're either behind a screen or they're writing on a piece of paper, and they're just kind of like, that's what it is. In this game, the players are cooperating, and then you play your resource, which is a card or something like that. Like, let's say you execute some kind of movement, but then the card goes to the monster.
Yeah, so there are two ways to use the cards that the students have. The creature doesn't start out with any cards. So students can either discard a card to do a basic movement, which would be to move, to do a basic action, which would be to move, or there's an action called track where you can try to narrow down the beast location. And then if they actually play a card to use its ability, so that could be something like an attack or like stims to give you extra movement. Those cards all have inverse abilities on them that when you give them to the creature, they're flipped, they're rotated to the other side, and that creature now has an ability that you've given it. So you have to be very careful with the abilities that you use because you don't want to give the creature too much. There are certain types of cards in the game called evolve cards. If the creature gets so many of those, they can actually evolve and get crazy new powerful abilities that will make things much harder on the students. So yeah, you really have to be cognizant of what you're giving up at all times.
I love that.
Yeah.
I haven't played it. I've not played it.
It's very tense.
But like, I love one versus many games. I've played all of them except, like, it's from Nuns on the Run or whatever it is back in the day, which is not a great game. They've gotten better since then. But I looked at it. I'm like, wow, why hadn't somebody thought of this before? I like that kind of not just on the board interaction, but the resource interaction, where it makes a really awesome decision of like, okay, I could play this great move and I'm really going to get a benefit out of this, but the creature's going to turn into a big monster. I love it. That's so great.
Yeah, it makes it so tense. And like an interesting thing about the game is like your location is hidden, but other than that, information can't be shared secretly. So like you can't show your hand to one of your fellow students secretly or like whisper to them. Everything has to be out in the open.
So are there like pieces on a map and then move around, or is it more kind of abstract?
Yeah, so on your player board, you'll have a player piece which denotes your location, and then we have like tracker cubes which go on the main boards. Like if you're trying to triangulate the creature's position, or if they're trying to triangulate a student position, they can kind of look around and be like, oh, okay, well, they're definitely not in biology, so like I'll take my tracker cubes out of there and put them in physics, which I think they might be in there.
Okay, so not only is there this kind of like, because I think of Specter Ops, right? That's a dudes on a map game where you kind of know where all the invaders in that game are, like the many, quote unquote. You always know where they are, and in those kind of games, you tend to know kind of where at least the many are.
Yeah,
one side. Basically, like there's one side that's always known, and here it seems like there's a lot more mystery involved in all that.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery, and so part of what that does is, say a student is thinks the creature is like in one zone, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to attack in there, and maybe you're in that zone. Oops. Then you may need to just say like, no, don't attack in here. So what that will do is it will give up your location, but it will save you from being attacked. So there's a lot of like ebb and flow, and like you're constantly trying to decide like how much to give up, what you can play close to the chest. And so like that may, as you're trying to give cards to the creature, that may come up, because if somebody's about to play a card, and the inverse ability is something that could very negatively affect you, you may have to say like, no, really not a good idea to play that. I can't tell you why, but don't do it.
Right. So, Everdell had solo, and Archmage had solo. Can there be solo in this game? I know it's not there now, but can there be?
I don't really foresee a way that it could be. Okay. And like, I'm a huge proponent of solo gaming. I love solo games.
You're on the right pod.
Yeah, I'm like a social introvert. So at the end of the day, I really like coming home and playing alone. This game, though, honestly, probably not, just because it's so, like, the real meat of the game is really reliant on, like, the collaboration between players, not just the students, but also with the creature, because you're trying to decide, like, it's kind of like the evil, like, what to give up to them. Right. And, like, the deductive aspect, really, and there is like a certain level of deduction if you think the creature might be bluffing you in some way, or vice versa with the students.
So does it work as a 2-player then, if there's so much collaboration among the players?
Yeah, it does work. So the lone student will get like more actions to be able to absorb some of that. It'll be like much tenser, and there will probably be like less of that back and forth because you have more control over what you're giving up. But yeah, it definitely works as a 2-player.
I don't get the prototypes for these. Save those for Man vs. Meeple. Other stuff.
Well, hey, anytime you want one, let us know.
Well, I mean, it's fun to kind of look at the Kickstarter page and be able to kind of piece it together in my head, what this all looks like. Is there anything else that you wanted to feature about the project before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I mean, it's on Kickstarter now. It'll be on there through October 25th. Just launched today. So we have some really fun stretch goals planned, including a whole expansion. So we would love to get more people on the page to check it out and help us spread the word.
Awesome. And you have more on the pike for Starling Games and for all your other imprints, right?
Well, what I can tell you, because you've name dropped Archmage a couple times, is we are planning to have the Archmage, the first expansion in November, which is called Ascendant. So keep an eye out for that.
All right. So that was Brenna Noonan talking about Starling Games, talking about all of the efforts that Starling Games / Salute is going to bring it back and bring you awesome games. Early returns are great. I really enjoyed Everdell. Really enjoyed Archmage. This one looks like a lot of fun. I mean, I'm a big fan of One vs. Many, and it looks like this is a cool twist on it. So this looks really good. So we are talking about Zero, not Null. We are talking about Zero, Fear Nothing, the One vs. Many game, which is on Kickstarter now.
Yeah, if people are trying to search, they should just search Fear Nothing.
Yeah, at this point. Brenna, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that does it for another episode of the Every Night is Game Night preview series. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for bearing with a little bit of confusion. We're talking about this game whose name does not exist anymore. It has been stricken from the record. It is now Anomaly, the One vs. Many hidden movement game. You heard all about it. It looks really cool. And we hope that you have enough information so you can mosey on over to the page, see whether it's worth your hard-earned money. If you want to talk to us about this episode or any other episode or any other game or anything, anything at all, I am available at ENGN_podcast. You can find us on the Facebook group, Every Night is Game Night. There is, at this point, by the time the episode launches, there should be a very cute picture of my brand spanking new baby that has been delivered and that will be taking up the majority of my time. Hopefully, I can peel myself away and interact with you guys a little bit more actively. Go check out our website, everynightisgamenight.com. We have a geek list with tons of episodes, over 140, 50 if you include a preview series at this point. Go, please, point people to it and so that they can enjoy and hopefully catch up, dip in, see their favorites and all that kind of stuff. All right, that is going to do it for another episode. This is Jason signing off until the next preview series. Later, everybody.